Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the challenge. My name is Pia McAdams and this is your mind, body, soul mind, body, soul, where you're going to transform your life in 15 minutes. All right, so happy to see you guys. So if you're not watching it live, then thank you for taking the time to watch in the recording. So yesterday we're reading, for the mind portion of the challenge, we're reading Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell, Maltz. And yesterday I explained what cybernetics was. I mentioned how it was like our inner guidance system, where it basically directs us to become successful and to achieve the things that we want to achieve in life. And it's all based upon our self-image. I also mentioned that if you're having trouble achieving your goals and you're trying to use your willpower, I kind of showed the rubber band as your willpower. And I mentioned that what you're doing throughout the day is you're stretching your willpower. But any type of distraction that kind of goes back to its original format. And if you're trying to wonder why, it's because of the self-image that you have in front of and inside of you. So we're going to start reading today, and I'm going to continue on with the second part of it. So we're on chapter 1 with self-image, your guide to a better life. Okay. Now, I left off yesterday when I said all your actions, your feelings, behaviors, even your abilities are always consistent with this self-image. Now, the good news is, number 2 is that your self-image can be changed. So it says numerous case studies have shown that, hold on, let me start my timer so I don't go out of time. So it says that numerous case studies have shown that no one is too young or too old to change his self-image and thereby start a new life. Hi. Good to see you. Thank you for coming on. Now, one of the reasons it has been seen so difficult for a person to change his habits, his personalities, or his way of life has been that here, there, too, nearly all efforts at change have been directed at the circumference of the self, so to speak, rather than to the center. Numerous patients have said to me something like the following: if you're talking about positive thinking, I've tried that before, and it just doesn't work for me. However, a little questioning invariably brings out that the individual have employed positive thinking or attempted to employ it rather than particular external circumstances or on some particular habit or character defect. I will get that job. I will be more calm and relaxed in the future. This business venture will turn out right for me, etc. But they have never thought to change their thinking about the self, about self that was to accomplish these things. Since Jesus warned us about the folly of putting a patch of new material on an old garment, or of getting new wine into old bottles, positive thinking cannot be used effectively as a patch or a crutch to the same old self-image. In fact, it is literally impossible to really think positively about a particular situation as long as you hold a negative concept of yourself. Okay. Hi, good morning. Thanks for coming on. Good to see you guys. It says, and numerous experiments have shown that once the concept of self is changed, other things consistent with the new self are accomplished easily and without strain. One of the earliest and most convincing experiments along this line was conducted by the late Prescott Lecky, one of the pioneers in self-image psychology. Lecky conceived of the personality as a system of ideas, all of which must seem to be consistent with one another. Ideas that are inconsistent with the system are rejected and not believed and not acted upon. Ideas that seem to be consistent with the system are accepted. So at the very center of this system of ideas, the keystone, the base upon which all else is built, is the individual's ego ideal, his self-image, or his conception of himself. It says that Lecky was a school teacher who had the opportunity to test his theory on thousands of students. Lecky theorized that if a student had trouble learning a certain subject, it could be because from the student's point of view, it would be inconsistent for him to learn it. Lecky believed, however, that if you could change the student's self-conception, which underlies his viewpoint, his attitude toward the subject would change accordingly. So if the student could be induced to change his self-definition, his learning ability should change also, and this proved to be the case. One student who misspelled 55 words out of 100 and flunked so many subjects that he lost credit for a year became one of the best spellers in the school and made the general average of 91 the next year. A boy who was dropped from college because of poor grades entered Columbia and became a straight A student. A girl who flunked Latin 4 times after 3 talks with a student counselor finished with a grade of 84. A boy who was told by a testing bureau that he had no aptitude for English won honorably mention the next year for a literary prize. The trouble with these students was not that they were dumb or lacking basic aptitudes. The trouble was an inadequate self-image. Well, I don't have a mathematical mind. I'm just naturally a poor speller. They identified with their mistakes and failures. Instead of saying, I failed that test, which was factual and descriptive, they concluded, I am a failure. Instead of saying, I flunked that subject, they said, I am a flunk out. For those who are interested in learning more about Lecky's work, I recommend securing a copy of his book, Self-Consistency, A Theory of Personality. But unfortunately, that book is no longer in print. All right, it says Lecky also used the same method to cure students of such habit as nail biting and also stuttering. My own files contains case history just as convincing. The man who was so afraid of strangers that he seldom ventured out in a house and who now makes his living as a public speaker. And there was a salesman who had already prepared a letter of resignation because he just wasn't cut out for selling. And 6 months later, he was the #1 man on the force. The minister who was considering retirement because his nerves and the pressure of preparing a sermon each week was getting him down, now delivers an average of 3 outside talks a week later in addition to his variable sermons. And he doesn't even have a nerve in his body. All right, so today what we talked about the internal guidance system and how all of your actions, feelings, and behaviors, even your abilities, are always consistent with your self-image. And then, but the second part is that you can change your self-image. All right, thank you. Again, Psycho-Cybernetics, I highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. Okay, let's take my mic off. For especially the people on the West Coast. But again, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the recording. And I'd like to know, like, what happened, what was anything that happened to you from yesterday's exercise? Like, did you experience anything different, even if just internally or just like an outlook? I know when I get up extra early in the morning, then it makes my day that much better. I get an extra hour or 2 to start off my day, and everything just works out just well. Okay, so now we're moving on to the yoga portion, and we're going to be doing the sun salutation. And then immediately after that, we're going to go to the soul portion of it, where we're going to be doing, meditation. And I particularly would like to hear you guys about the meditation, because a lot of times we find it hard to quiet our minds. So I want to know, what was it like for you if that was your first time meditating yesterday? Like, was it hard for you to keep the thoughts from your mind? And how was it that 5 minutes seemed like an extremely long time to do it? So just kind of let me know in the comments. I'd like to know that. Thank you. Okay, now we're coming to mind of the soul portion. We're going to do some meditation. Nice comfortable position. Just kind of close your eyes, clear your mind. And again, if thoughts come to your mind, just kind of gently push them aside and focus on your breathing. You just have 5 minutes. Inhaling deeply through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. There'll be a count of inhaling on 1 and exhaling on 2. Release, relax, and return fresh and calm. You've done something good for yourself today. Namaste. Thank you for joining me in day 2 of the Transform Your Life in 15 Minutes challenge, and I will see you again tomorrow. Have a